So, welcome everybody. We've had a lovely chat and enjoyed listening to private conversations and cross conversations. I'm really excited that so many of you have joined us for this evening of fun and laughter and frivolity, while also supporting Impact to make a difference to women and children fleeing extreme violence at home. The wonders of technology means that we have people online now, not just in suburbs close to me, but from all over Victoria, from interstate, and also from internationally. We've got Carol in New Zealand, which is lovely to have her here with us. On behalf of us all, I want to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, the first peoples of Australia, the traditional owners of the lands and waters throughout the country on which we're privileged to live, work and play, lands and waters which have never been ceded. I recognise their continuing connection to those lands, waters and communities, and pay respect to their peoples, their cultures, their languages, and to their elders past, present and emerging. Yeah, thank you. I've only got coffee. I think I need something better. Yeah. And now on to the debate. And so I want to introduce you first to Karen Katz, who has bravely agreed to moderate and take control of our debaters this evening. Karen, also known as KK, is an infectiously cheeky and creative woman, and her greatest creations, I think she would say, would be her two amazing daughters. Professionally, Karen is the director of KK Consulting, so if you need help to hire, nurture, or develop amazing humans in your businesses or organisations, Karen has to be your go-to person. Like me, Karen drank the spirit of volunteerism with her mother's milk and continues to be actively involved in many great community and professional groups, including Impact, Girls in Tech, and many others. I asked Karen to tell me a fun fact about herself, and I think she's going to regret telling me this one. Now that I know that Karen has abseiled down the side of a very tall Sydney hotel to raise money for charity, my brain is working overtime to work out how we can get her to do that for us here. Karen told me that it was one of the scariest things she's ever done, but she had a team of really attractive firemen accompanying her. So she went back up and did it a second time the following year. Karen, well, Karen, I know our Melbourne police friends are just as attractive, if not more so, than the Sydney Fireys. So I'm warning you, a similar challenge will be forthcoming. Friends, I give you the amazingly awesome and brave Karen Katz.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and welcome to our viewers out there in Zoom land and my friends who I saw join, which is very exciting and just a fraction nerve-wracking. I've been a supporter of Kathy and the amazing charity that is Impact for Women for a number of years. I'm not sure if you're all aware, but Impact for Women has just won the City of Glen Ira Community Group of the Year Award for 2020, which is testament to the incredible work that this organisation does and the very important function that it performs. Anyway, as Kathy did mention, my name is Karen Katz and I'm honoured to be your MC for tonight's debate. We're here to be entertained, to learn a thing or two, and if we happen to make a little bit of money for our friends at Impact for Women, then that is just the icing on the cake. If you're enjoying the debate, you're feeling generous, or really just because it's Wednesday, please donate to this most worthy cause. Just go to www.impactforwomen.org.au and click on the little box that offers you the opportunity to make a tax-deductible donation. Every cent raised will help to do things such as provide free childcare at the Moorabbin Magistrates Court, repair and refurbish safe houses, and a lot more. Anyway, tonight we debate that to be old and wise, you first need to be young and stupid. Our two teams are chomping at the bit, ready to spruik their side of the story. I don't know what that was, but okay. We have assembled the best of the best to state their case and convince you that their side is the winning side. So who has taken up the challenge tonight? Working to prove that you do indeed firstly need to be young and stupid before you can be old and wise are our affirmative team, Deborah Stone and Howard Nathan. Deborah Stone is a journalist, editor and communications consultant. She was the editor of the Australian Jewish News and Arts Hub and a feature writer on The Age. She now works in communications and writes for Plus 61J. You know, it's funny what some people fantasize about. Some want to be rock stars, some want to jump out of planes and skydive, and some, like Deborah, just want to be Marsha Brady. Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. Now, between you and me, in the current world of Zoom overload, Deborah is feeling like all her fantasies have come true. Now, my ask of all of you tonight is to pin Deborah to the top left-hand corner of the screen, just to ensure tonight is the ultimate fantasy come true for her. Her partner in crime may be considered wise and even retired, but never old. Professor Howard Nathan AM, or as he is affectionately known, Uncle Howard, is a former Supreme Court judge who since retiring has thrown himself into supporting a number of different causes, whether that be volunteering as a judge in the Caribbean, working as a director for the Bendigo Art Gallery Foundation, serving on the board of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, or competing in our little debate here tonight. Uncle Howard takes everything in his stride. He's a cool cat. When he was told about his appointment as an AM, he simply said, "It's a bonza beaut." That's just the kind of guy he is. Their opposition, who are out to persuade you that you absolutely do not first need to be young and stupid before you can be old and wise, are Sue Zacharin and Adrian Elton. Sue is a retired solicitor who has worked in large and small firms, the public sector, and has run her own business. She was the first female at her school to study law and the first female president of a local Lions club. She describes herself as a knitting nana and still loves a good argument, cunningly described as healthy debate. Although after tonight, she feels that only the dog will want to know her. A few years ago, Sue once kept pace with the Rolling Stones limousine driving down Queen's Road, Melbourne, in peak hour, whilst they signed her autograph book and then threw it back to her out the window. She still has that book, and she doesn't know this, but I may be paying her a bit of a visit to snaffle that little treasure. I'm just a tiny bit of a Stones fan.
Good luck.
Joining Sue in the team that feel that it is positive to be negative is Adrian Elton. Adrian is a shape-shifting cultural provocateur who's not afraid to rock the boat or say what needs to be said. When he's not on the clock creating brand chemistry for his advertising and design clients, he's either polishing pop gems in his elaborate home recording studio or else prolifically churning out politically charged memes that spread like wildfire. What you may not know about Adrian, however, is that he played the part of a rabbi in an episode of Seth Rogen's surreal TV series Preacher, which was filmed at the East Melbourne Synagogue last year. Let's make sure to look out for that one. So I would like to welcome all four of our speakers. So well done, team, and that's me and Kathy clapping. Awesome. So this is how it's going to work. Each team member has 3 minutes to make their argument, taking turns, affirmative and then negative. Speaker 1 from each team will then rebut the other team's arguments for 1.5 minutes, and then speaker 2 from each team will present their closing argument for 2 minutes. The winner of this debate will be decided by you, our audience, via a poll if Kathy can get the technology going. So if you like what it is that Deborah and Howard have to say, then you'll be voting affirmative. And of course, if Sue and Adrian have mesmerized you with their arguments, you'll be voting negative. Hold on to all those votes until the end when the poll comes live so that you can fairly assess the intellectual pearls of wisdom that our debaters are going to be offering you tonight. Oh, and one more thing. Speeches are short, so no warnings on time. When your time is up, we will let you know like this. Quacky has said his thing. Your time is up, baby. So let's get on with it. I'd like to welcome our first speaker from the affirmative team to present their argument. Deborah Stone, you're up.
Good evening to you all, Zoomies and Zamies, young and old, sage and simpleton. Behind me, you can see a picture of Socrates, the man Western tradition says was the wisest of all. He is, you will note, depicted as an old man. In fact, if you look at statues and paintings of Socrates, you'd be convinced he came out of his mother's womb with a long grey beard, deep wrinkles, and a heavy frame. Poor Mrs. Socrates. Of course, Socrates wasn't born old, and actually we know very little about his youth, but that doesn't matter. The artists knew what we all know. Before he was old and wise, even Socrates was young and stupid, and you don't get put on a pedestal for that. As for Socrates, so for the rest of us. Youth and stupidity are the natural and necessary antecedents of old age and wisdom. They are the caterpillar to the butterfly, the lump of carbon to the diamond. This gawky teenager before he became George Clooney. I'll leave that one up there for you to enjoy. Wisdom refers not merely to the acquisition of knowledge, which can happen at any age, but how we apply that knowledge, which takes experience. Knowledge, for example, is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. Actually, the young can stuff up even the right ingredients in a fruit salad. My eldest son sliced the passion fruit and threw away the seeds. The minds of the young are charming in their desire to make sense of the world, but they get it wrong all the time. When my other son learned bees made honey, he immediately wanted to know which animal made jam. When he learned hens laid eggs, he wanted to know which bird laid olives. Life is so full of inconsistency that only experience can teach us wisdom. It is the errors of youth that become the wisdom of old age. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn, the older and wiser you become. Those who never made mistakes never become wise. Those who become old without wisdom were likely not foolish enough when they were young. There's your get out of jail free card, youngsters. Wisdom can only come late. That's why we call the last teeth to come in wisdom teeth. Although possibly that name was chosen by dental surgeons who identified the money-making opportunities of this anatomical anomaly. Okay, I know you'd rather have George Clooney. We learn from observing the mistakes of others. A centenarian is just an 18-year-old with 82 years of experience. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, we don't live long enough to make all our own mistakes, but we learn better from our own mistakes. So mix your drinks, split your infinitives, and agree to participate in a comedy debate. Before you are old and wise, you need to be young and foolish.
Thank you, young Deborah. Well done. We now move to the first speaker from the negative team. To tell you their side of the story, please welcome Sue Zacharin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Team Affirmative, and good evening, assembled throng. My righteous colleague, Adrian, will address the issues we have with the subject for debate this evening far more eloquently and fluently than I could. So my task tonight is to make everyone look at the reality of the statement. In order to become old and wise, you first need to be young and stupid. Now, apart from it sounding like a lame attempt by a teenage boy to explain his latest stuff up while giving his parents some hope for the future, that statement doesn't have a lot going for it. So let's look at it briefly. Old, the art of not being young, measured in years. Wise, possessing knowledge and experience of benefit to self and probably others. Young, the art of not being old, measured in lack of years. Stupid, even if you did know stuff, you don't retain it, you don't benefit from it. Now, the only certainty of all those is young. We're all born and we grow. And the theory is that we grow and we learn academically and we grow emotionally. But like all theories, there's a counter theory, and the counter theory in this case is pretty big. It's Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest. In accordance with this theory, most people have the choices to learn and think. Stupid people do neither. As a result, they quite often do not survive, and Adrian will address some alternatives that they have later. This theory even has its own awards called the Darwin Awards, or Dumb Ways to Die, and it applies equally to the young and the old. For example, in 2018, and this is a true story, in Berlin, a young man and his soon-to-be ex-girlfriend were walking along beside an icy river, quarrelling. Frustrated that he couldn't win his conversational point, he suddenly shoved the woman into the water and jumped in after, trying to hold her down and drown her. His first problem was that she could swim and he couldn't. His second problem was that she escaped and swam to safety. He, on the other hand, died of irreversible brain damage on Valentine's Day. Let's move on to young and wise. There are the young who seem to be born wise, and these people do tend to survive and become a voice of reason. They usually don't have any friends though. Other people become observers, sitting back, watching the hijinks and the resultant trouble, saying nothing, doing nothing, watching and learning. You probably went to school with them, you might have worked with a few, but you won't remember a name because they never actually did anything. They've become old and wise without ever being stupid, sat back and learned from your mistakes, benefited from your mistakes. They've skated past you and won the medal. They've done a Bradbury. So in order to be old and wise, you don't first have to be young and stupid, just a really good ice skater on this rink called life.
But I didn't get to use the duck.
Sorry.
I'm ready. Like, I'm ready. What are you doing?
Go for the duck. Go for the duck, Karen.
Thank you.
I got the duck, Adrian.
Well,
Thank you very much.
very nice. You beat the duck.
I appreciate it. I
Oh,
can't
the
tell you how
duck.
much it means to me. Rightio. Now, for the second speaker for the affirmative team, the cheekiest member of our crew tonight, I give you Howard Nathan.
Am I on the air? Am I on the?
are.
Pardon? Am I? Look, there's been some error here because the Youth Parole Board has obviously been very busy in the last few hours, and I noticed from your panel of guests, as much as from your panel of speakers, that there are some parolees who should not be. But I'm in the fortunate position, being both old and young, and I can tell you from biological experience that you need to traverse the whole panoply before you can have wisdom and comfort. Now, Deborah has outlined the intellectual case. I have to go to some things a little more attached to here and now. You'll probably know my family story, or at least part of it. And this really concerns you, Madam Chair, when your parents phoned you after some time to say, 70s, we're getting divorced. We're getting divorced. And you said, living some distance from them in Melbourne whilst they were in the dreaded shrouds of Sydney, don't do this, wait. They then phoned your brother who was in London and said, you won't understand this, but your mother and I have decided to divorce. No, don't, I'll come back immediately, I'll be on a plane, I'm coming back. The phone went down. Your father turned to your mother and said, I've got them back for Passover. Oh, I'm sorry if that fell over, or I should have said they'll be coming home for Christmas, depending upon who's watching. Now that, you see, is an expiration of wisdom over youth and callousness. I have been through both stages, and I noticed that Sue was having a bit of trouble with her background, and she was speaking of dark ways to die and things of that kind. Her parents, of course, were quite convinced she was immaculately conceived and arrived on the doorstep with the stalk. Now, that's the sort of story that you get from those who say, oh, you're born and you develop and you don't really need age and maturation to end up with a college degree, or indeed even passing yourself off as a sympathetic New York policeman. I've stopped.
I know, I stopped you. Thank you, young Howard. Now, he's been waiting very patiently to tell us, as it is, that it should be, I give you Adrian Elton.
Okay, wait 1 second. Okay, tell me when my time starts.
About 4 seconds ago.
Okay, before we begin, I just want to wear my heart on my sleeve and play the pity card up front. Last time I debated, I was in high school and I don't remember winning anything other than contempt. So with that in mind, I ask you to go easy on Team Negative and to look upon me with the same pity and compassion that you would normally reserve for a small injured kitten. All that established, today I'm going to demonstrate that there is no correlation between a state of advanced age and wisdom and youthful vapidity as a precondition for that state? Or put simply, you don't need to be first young and stupid in order to eventually be old and wise. One can be old and stupid just as easily as one can be young and wise. It ultimately comes down to the sensibility, capacity, and aptitude of the individual. Similarly, there are those that are old and wise who have originally been young and wise, and all that has changed is the passage of time. Or in my case, an off-the-charts genius at the age of 12, followed by a slippery downhill trajectory to Stupidsville. But of course, as many of you don't know me, all you can assess is the idiot before you right now. So instead, let's pivot and consider those wisest of wise beacons of humanity, our greatest fine artists. From Da Vinci to Picasso, brilliant and wise in their dotage like a heady cross between Gandalf and Dumbledore, and yet incandescent and precociously profound in their youth. Sure, they aged like fine kosher wine, but they were already a blaze of radiant brilliance from the get-go, no slack-jawed, dim-witted state of youthful idiocy as prelude to their later accomplishments. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's also consider those that were spectacular in their younger years, like the Paul McCartneys of this world, who have sadly been wearied by age and whose output has been dulled to a pale, muted flicker of the genius channeled so effortlessly from such a tender age. Consider that McCartney was only 16 years old when he penned When I'm 64, and yet the world is left scratching its head in a bid to bring to mind anything he wrote in 2006 when he actually was 64. Finally, I'm going to play the trump card and leverage the US commander in grief as startling evidence of the fact that young and stupid can beget older and even more stupid. Now there's a CV like none other. 100,000 dead US citizens on his watch and a country engulfed in flames while he practices golf putting from a White House bunker. Indeed, wisdom needs not youth nor stupidity, and while some may well have profound epiphanies in the wake of idiotic flights of lunacy that have crash-landed, age and wisdom are the function of an already switched-on individual drawing on a lifetime of observation and insight so as to soar to even greater heights. While sadly, as per Trump, the certifiably stupid just age disgracefully. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you. So now it is rebuttal time. Let's have it, Deborah. You ready? Go.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Look what Socrates thinks of the arguments of the negative. He's still old, still wise, but not at all impressed. What would Socrates say to these arguments if he were alive? Well, it would all be Greek to me. But if he spoke English, he might look for some words that mean stupid, and he'd find words such as callow, inexperienced, crude, green, jeune, sophomore, tenderfoot, words that make it clear that youth and foolishness are inherently linked. The negativers argue that some never achieve wisdom, and they thoroughly convinced us of this by the nature of their debate. But that's not our subject. Sue attempted an ice skating analogy, which reminded me only of Stephen Bradbury, the gold medalist who won because everyone else had fallen over. Adrian just went straight to asking for our pity. They did try to argue that you can be young and wise. Now, this debate is overpopulated with Jews, so it's not surprising we have the fallacy of this extraordinary gifted child. Any teacher knows that the definition of a gifted child is an ordinary child with Jewish grandparents. The man whose name has become a synonym for brilliance, Einstein himself, said that the source of knowledge is experience. The negative wants to argue with Einstein. I told you we're not saying that everyone old is wise. But I must admit that the negative have demonstrated admirably how difficult it is to display wisdom. So let's applaud them on their stupidity tonight, because without it, they will never become old and wise.
Someone muted my duck. What the? I'll find you, young lady. I'll find you.
Karen, did they mute it or neuter it, did you say?
I don't know what they did, but all of a sudden the duck was not quacking. It's not cool. Are we going to let her get away with that, young Sue? I don't think so. Let's do it. Let's go.
Okay, all right. Thanks very much, Deborah, for attempting to point out the errors in our argument without looking at your own. So here's some help for you by way of rebuttal. First of all, don't try and make a point by playing on your audience's juvenile memories and emotions. Just remember this, somebody always loved George Clooney, always, okay? Having those feelings of inadequacy doesn't lead to wisdom. It leads to wearing black clothing purchased from op shops for 5 years. So you're telling us that you can't get it right when you're young. You're telling us that the young don't make right decisions. You're telling us that they have no wisdom. I'm not going to make the 2 minutes, Deborah, because I've got 3 examples that I think knock your argument right on the head, okay? The first one is one that happened during my youth. A young generation fought in Vietnam, mostly because they were made to by an older generation. But it was a young generation that stopped Australian and American participation in that war. It was rolling protest. It was rolling education of the elderly. It was making older people aware that stopped that war. Secondly, okay, 2 minutes already.
Oh, keep going. I only gave you, oh no, you only had 1.5. Whoa.
Okay, thanks.
You had me.
Next thing today, what about?
No, you only get 1.5 minutes. Your partner in crime too.
All right.
You confused me. I'm too. Don't be confusing.
And I was going to talk about climate change and what's actually happening in the streets now and young people. Never mind.
Well, you just let Adrian take that for you when it's
okay. That'd be fine.
All right. I'm glad we had this chat.
I am too.
Concluding argument for the affirmative team, Uncle Howard, you're up.
Yes.
Your turn.
What?
Uncle Howard?
Yes.
Your turn, my love.
Oh, 1.5 minutes. Brethren,
Not 2. Ready, set, go.
brethren and sisterin, you have seen by example the vacuity, the lack of adhesion to matters of logic, sense or shame of the young infants trying to propound the fact that age, maturation and joy does not bring wisdom as well as those other things. I mean, certain bits don't work. There are some failures of mechanical functions which are a little bit sad, and I must confess that urologists have made a fortune out of the elderly generation, including myself. But nevertheless, as time passes and as I've reached the end of the tether, I can see you reaching for your instrument, Madam Chair. As time passes, you will appreciate as you move into your 20s and 30s and in some cases even 40s, you will appreciate that maturation and joy bring with it comfort and wisdom. Have I finished?
But that's the second non-used duck.
Go for it.
I'm not. All right. Thank you. I really appreciate you giving me permission. Thank you. And I would like to say, Uncle Howard, that your change of hats has been noted, observed and noted. So thank you for that.
Well,
I like the West.
just to make sure.
You out, you're making waves. Look at you.
Well, indeed, I am threatening instant medical intervention for those who don't vote. And you may think that you've been unnoticed. I have recorded the various comments, and the Commissariat for Decency, Charm and Maturation will be visiting you tonight with various instruments of court.
I think I'm looking forward.
That is a change of husband or spouse.
He's out now, baby. It's on. Rightio. To bring us home, no pressure, Adrian Elton. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, before we get into the guts of our conclusion, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the word conclusion contains the damning word con. And this is precisely what our esteemed colleagues on the affirmative team are going to attempt to do. Yep, con you into believing that their contention is more convincing than ours. And for some additional bonus points, here's a photo of Con the fruiterer.
Oh, is he out now?
Yep.
Apparently. But in terms of our argument, we just want to reiterate that being young and stupid is the most reliable indicator moving forward of being old and even more stupid, just as being young and ridiculous is the most reliable indicator moving forward of being old and even more ridiculous. Has anyone taken a good look at Iggy Pop lately? Meanwhile, King Solomon the Wise, venerated for his incontestable wisdom, was not some boozing numpty in his youth. No, he was deliberating on matters of great public import long before puberty's first sprout and spray. So too, a good friend reminded me that Ernie Wise of the iconic British comedy duo Morecambe and Wise was consistently wise from the day he was born in 1925 right up until the day of his death in 1999. Irrespective, in closing, please remember that 2 negatives equals a positive and a vote for Team Neg equals some plus-sized nachas. And remember, you don't have to be old and wise. In fact, your not being old and wise will quite possibly help us in this hapless attempt at online seduction. And if all else fails, we'll just leave it to the Electoral College. Thank you.
Thank you very much, young Adrian. Cracky is feeling a bit ripped off, just saying. So, our esteemed audience, it's all going to come down to you. You are the ones who will be voting if Kathy could get the poll worked in one way. Otherwise, we'll be voting in the comments. Just remember that if you liked what it was that young Deborah and young Howard had to say, then that's the vote for our affirmative team. If, however, that Adrian and Sue have mesmerised you with your, oh, the poll popped up, then it's negative. So it popped up for me, I'll just say that much. So make your votes and let's see what it is that we come up with. In the meantime, I'd like to let you know that Kathy has graciously recorded tonight's proceedings. So if you want to relive it all over again, or if you're a bit daft and you only just tuned in and missed it all, links will be posted to both Facebook and the Impact for Women website tomorrow. Whilst I have you here, oh captive audience, I'm wondering if you knew that our founder, Kathy Kaplan, who is an OAM, which is one more letter than you, Uncle Howard, just saying, won a 2019 award from Impact 25, no relation, I promise, to recognise the incredible work that she's done to both establish and run Impact for Women. There are accolades everywhere for this place. I love it. If you happen to be on the website, www.impactforwomen.org.au, and you just happen to want to click the tax-deductible donation button in June, when it's the end of the financial year, and we all like more tax deductions, please go ahead and do it. And in addition, if you want to have some more fun and also support Impact for Women, on Thursday, the 18th of June, they will be hosting a virtual trivia night opening at 7:15 for a 7:30 start. You can compete together with your family, friends, or colleagues, or you can even play by yourself, not with yourself. Well, actually, that's just none of my business. You do what you want to do. You do you, boo. As Kathy would say, help us to make an impact. Details will be on the Impact for Women website tomorrow. Before I throw back to Kathy to announce the winner of our debate, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Deborah Stone, Uncle Howard Nathan, Sue Zacharin and Adrian Elton for their most entertaining and informative banter. I, for one, loved every minute of it. And Cracky and I are now going to throw back to Kathy to announce the winners.
Wow, what can I say? This tonight worked even better than I could have ever hoped for. Karen, Sue, Deborah and Adrian, could you each please go to your front door or send somebody there to pick up a small thank you gift that's being left by some brave, generous person of spirit, and they've had to sneak up to your front door without you knowing. So can you just go and get that while I ask everybody, if you haven't voted yet, could you please? I can see that most of you have voted. I'm going to count down 5 seconds. 5, Or Karen, aren't you getting your present?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't want to miss anything.
I'll wait for you.
And I just have to flag that I'm in the lab. I'm not even at home.
Oh, well, let's at your front door for you.
I look forward to getting home and taking a look. Thank you.
We had people in balaclavas sneaking up to your front doors. Uncle Howard, I'm sorry, you live just too far away for me to have found someone to sneak up to your front door. For those of you who don't know, Uncle Howard lives with Mia, which is just a little way from Bendigo in the middle of bloody nowhere. So,
Or the centre of the universe.
or the centre of the universe, which is the same thing. I enjoy it in good health.
They are beautiful. Thank you. Thank
Now,
you
I'm
so
going to
much.
close the poll. Now, I don't know if this shows on the screen. Do you see what it says?
No,
No.
I don't know.
Because it says share results. And it
Oh,
was close.
I can see that there.
It was the team have.
Quick, bring out the wine. Come on.
I have got my glass of
Audience, you're now
hydroxychloroquine
free
solution.
to unmute yourselves and turn on your videos just while I say the final thank yous, and then we can have a chat if you like. I really, really, really want to thank everybody. I want to thank Impact's board for who authorised to proceed with this crazy idea. I want to thank my Secret Service deliverers who snuck up to our presenters' doors in the middle of the night.
Thank you.
I want to thank Karen, Howard, Sue, Deborah and Adrian, who gave us a real treat, and to you, the audience. Thank you all for having been here this evening. A special thank you if you've been in a position to make a donation, and thank you all for helping Impact make an impact. It really does matter. Stay well, everyone, stay healthy, and let's stay connected. Good night, and see you at our trivia night on the 18th. Night, night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Well done. That was great, everyone.
Thank you.
Such fun.
Yeah.
Very entertaining.
Good.
Thank you so much.